You know, as a ProPresenter operator, more than likely, you may not have to change anything in preferences or make adjustments in the settings because most of the time, we will already have everything configured for you and you can walk in and begin to operate or use the ProPresenter system. However, if you're going from one campus to another or one location to another for someone else, computers could be connected differently, they may be configured differently. Therefore, ProPresenter does need to have a little more attention by you, the operator. And if it does need attention, you'll be glad you watched this lesson. So believe it or not, there are some settings that should occur, even if you're just checking, before you launch ProPresenter. That's right. So I'm going to close ProPresenter, and I'm going to pretend like I'm walking into a location for the first time. I'm turning the computer on, and I'm going to go turn the displays on, and I'm going to go look at a couple items in the computer before I launch ProPresenter. So I'm going to navigate up here to the apple in the upper left-hand corner. I'll select System Preferences, and I'm going to navigate over here to Displays. Now, what I'm about to show you, some ProPresenter operators have mentioned, well, you can do this in ProPresenter, and I'll get to that in just a moment. So again, this is before ProPresenter has been launched. You want to make sure that you see this arrangement button. If you don't see this, that means your computer, not ProPresenter, that means your computer is not properly communicating to your external displays, or they're not connected correctly, and you may have to do some troubleshooting. Now, I know some of you watching this training series do not have a display connected to your computer. That's okay. You will not see this arrangement button then, of course, because your computer is simply not connected to an external display. You can still watch all these lessons and practice on your computer. However, I do recommend that you do not turn the output on in ProPresenter. There's a button on the toolbar, which I'll show you in a different lesson, that says output. I don't recommend you click on that to turn it on because there's no reason for you to do that. If you do that, your screen will go black. If that happens, simply move your mouse around just a little bit. You'll see a little circle X on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Move your mouse down onto that and click on that circle X, and the black screen will go away. Now, I am connected to an external device, so I'm going to click on this arrangement button here so we can continue with this lesson. First and foremost, you want to make sure Mirror Displays is unchecked. It should never be checked. Maybe for something else, but not for ProPresenter. This should never be checked. And if you see two blue boxes, so far so good. This large blue box, in my case, represents my computer screen. This other blue box represents the external display that my computer is communicating with. And you could, if you want, you could click on Gather Windows, which means another window, and there it is, it showed up behind. This represents my other display. And if you see these two items here, that means so far so good, your computer is properly communicating with the other external display that you will be displaying from ProPresenter. Okay, so with these two windows showing, so far so good. I'm going to close this out just like this, and then I'm going to launch ProPresenter. So I'll navigate down here to my dock where a shortcut is. ProPresenter should launch. There we go. I'll close this window out. And let's start with the preferences within ProPresenter. So I'll navigate up here to the top menu, mouse click on the ProPresenter 6 text, and then select Preferences. And I won't cover every item here, but I do want to talk about what I think are the most important, which let's talk about Advanced here first. Click on that tab. Scale to fit for both of these, for foreground and background, should be selected. Here's why. Background information such as graphics, almost anything actually, should never be cropped or distorted in any way. You want to leave that information alone, and same with foreground information. We'll be talking about more of this or these items in future lessons, but both of these basically should be set scale to fit because you don't want to crop or distort any visual information such as photos or graphics or videos that are coming in or being imported into ProPresenter. Okay? You also want to make sure that Show Audio Meter is checked. That means your audio meter here will be revealed, and if you're playing audio, whether it's associated with a video clip or if it's a separate audio file, you'll see these audio meters bouncing up and down. That represents the level, or it represents the levels if it's a stereo left and right audio channel. Okay, so let's navigate over here to Display. And in this tab, you want to make sure that, of course, this by default will already be checked, but this Scale to Fit output display should also be checked. Okay, now this may look similar. We were looking at this in our system preferences a moment ago, but here in ProPresenter, this represents my computer screen. It's this large kind of a pink looking box. This over here represents the output currently of my ProPresenter system. This bounding box, if you see this, means that the output resolution does not match the resolution of the screen that it's communicating with. This happens sometimes when you're using a laptop and you're connecting it to different displays back and forth, or the computer that you're at may have temporarily been connected to a different display with a different resolution. Okay, so we need to fix that. This happens quite often. So then you would navigate here, and I can see part of the problem already, but you can click on full screen, and look what happened when I did that. It filled it up. It's basically ProPresenters going out and shaking hands with the external display and figuring out the resolution, and here is the correct resolution. See that right there? Now, I've heard some ProPresenter operators say, well, here is the system display button that you could have gone to. You didn't have to go outside of ProPresenter. Well, I'm going to say it's probably, and I will click on it. If you click on that and you come into here, what I've seen and I've heard from some ProPresenter operators is they'll start to change the resolution. They'll go in and check mirror displays. And when you start messing around with that, while ProPresenter is running, and you do make those changes, it can confuse ProPresenter. Okay, so far so good. We're good here with this display tab. Let's talk about the general tab. Here in the general tab, most of this by default is set up pretty good. This whole tab mostly represents where things will be stored or saved. So for instance, when you create a new document, this is the path in which that document will be saved at. We'll be talking about documents, of course, in future lessons in this training series. But basically, this is the path. What happens is documents over here in our library there'll be so many documents, you may want to create another library location, and this is where you do it. You click on this button, select Add, Edit, Remove, click on the plus, go create a different folder, and then you can select that folder as an alternative location for documents. I'm not going to do that now. If you do that, I would probably get someone else involved who's also a ProPresenter operator. Make sure everyone's on the same page when this is changed, because then you'll have two different libraries. So be careful with that, but I understand why sometimes you may want to do that. Support files and media repository, I think by default are set great. We don't need to change this, but basically support files here will be stored for the user only when they log into the particular Apple computer, which I think is good because you could show schedules there. You could show personal information just for that operator, so I wouldn't change this, and I wouldn't change this either. The media repository for all users should probably be the same. If you want to manage media automatically, you can check that. Go over here, mouse click on this, and create a different location. Again, you may want to get your administrator involved because you may need passwords for that. So I'm going to uncheck that. We're not going to change that here in this lesson. Down below for copyright information, though, this is pretty important. Of course, enable copyright display should be checked. I've selected first and last slide, and this is more or less for the lyrics that we use. We want to give credit. We want to give proper credit. Okay. You may also want to get someone involved for your license number to be shown, and for CCLI layout. This is one of the resources that our church uses for lyrics. And there's a certain, when I click on this, there's a certain layout format that you should have for each set of lyrics. And you may want to get, again, someone else involved to make sure that this is being displayed properly, because it might be different from church to church or location to location. But when you're done, of course, you can click on done and you're good to go. Let's talk about network here in our preferences. Let's click on that tab. If you have enable network checked, which I do have, this here means you can type in something or a name, which is the name of your computer. You'll need that. You can call this ProPresenter System 1 or 2 or whatever, because when you have enable master control or enable ProPresenter remote checked, then you'll be remotely controlling this system, and you'll need to look for the name, and here's the port number and the password, so on and so forth. We do on occasion use this one here with the remote app. We use a smart device to remote control through the local network, whether it's a Wi-Fi or something else. As long as both the computer and your smart device are on that network, this will show up. It's a great thing. You'll have to type in this password, and you can control ProPresenter from a smart device remotely from anywhere in the room. It's very convenient. This is something else here, enable master control, which allows you to select and create a slave type option where you're controlling multiple ProPresenter systems at the same time. Okay, and that does take a little bit of administrative assistance with someone who knows a lot about computers so that it's done correctly. Both of these items are, I believe, are paid for options through the ProPresenter website, and you may want to consult before committing to doing either one of these. Okay, well, that's about it for preferences. Let's close this out. Let's talk about a few other items. So visually, once you get going with ProPresenter, you'll notice in my case, I happen to have a lot of thumbnail slide information going on here, down here. You can change the size of these by navigating over here to the bottom right hand side, mouse click on this little button here and drag it to the left to decrease the size, or to the right to increase the size. It's very convenient. And you can click on this list view only. You can click on this button here that changes it, of course. I prefer the thumbnail option myself, and you'll notice directly below here in the video image bin, if you don't see your video image bin, you may need to navigate up here to your toolbar, click on video image, notice how it turns it on or off, and then you can make the same adjustments to the thumbnails in here as well. Do you see that? List view or thumbnail view, which is quite nice and quite convenient actually. One of the first things you'll learn how to do while you're taking this training series is to create a new document, which is over here. We'll talk about this a lot more in future lessons. This can be done in many, many different areas. You can click on the new item here, file new up here, or down here in the plus arrow button, new document, new playlist. I mean, there's all kinds of new items that we're going to be creating, but I want to show these menus to you, and these aren't really settings or preferences. I just want to show you where these are because they're all over the place. We've got one here, and one here, and we'll be talking about that in a different lesson. Let's talk about one last thing, customizing our toolbar. I will control click on this toolbar, select customize toolbar, and there are a lot of options up here that you may see on my screen that you don't have, and that's because I was basically taking these items down here, dragging them up to this toolbar to customize what's parked up there. I can mouse click on this, drag it up. That's our clocks or a clocks feature. I can take something down as well, get rid of that. And I think as you progress through your experience with ProPresenter, you may have a preference as to what you want up here and what you don't want. And you'll only know that maybe after a dozen or so times of operating ProPresenter. So I'm going to click on done right there. Last but not least, I want to talk about audio. If you click on this audio button, that will reveal your audio windows where you can have music. You can bring music in independently, such as, I'll click on this. We're going to talk about this in a different lesson, but you'll see when I click on this song here, I'll pause it. These audio meters were going, these audio meters over here were going, but basically you can bring music in over here by clicking on this plus button to import and bring a lot of music in. And the first time you do this, by default, they will end up in whatever playlist you have selected up here. They'll end up in that, basically that playlist. So I'm going to close out the audio window, and that'll wrap it up for preferences and settings for ProPresenter.